Hello, hello again.
Hello, everybody.
If you may or may not know, my name is Divine Warren,
And my name is Ira Warren.
and together we're.
As one.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. So we're back again with another one of our shows. We were actually talking to somebody recently, and then they started asking us about questions about, goals and stuff that we had. So we decided to make this particular show about goals. Relationship goals as well as personal goals, but all together just talking about goals. If you may not know what a goal is like your ambition,
Yes.
something that drives you, something that you want to achieve, a target that you might want to go towards, a purpose,
Yes.
aspiration, desire, a hope that you want in your life. Something that you want to obtain. The first thing that I think when you think about goals, I think that you should try to do something that's realistic. I think a lot of people go for stuff that's not attainable, and as they continue to go in that direction and it looks like the goal isn't attainable, either one or two things occur. They'll either give up or they'll start to look at themselves as a failure.
Right.
Now, being in a marriage, you have to keep in mind that you're coming together as a unit. So it's not like when you get into a marriage, everything just, you snap your fingers and everything just miraculously just happens perfectly. When you come into a marriage, there's two individuals. So one individual comes with their goals or ideas, ambitions that they want to go towards. Then the other person comes in with their goals, their aspirations, maybe a childhood dream,
Yeah.
other things like that. So the first thing that I would like to say is keep in mind when you're goal orientated that if you're married, it's about the unit, and do not lose your identity as well, but you have to keep in mind that it's all about the unit also.
And I think those are very good points, honey. I think that, when you're talking about goals, have a vision. Because when you have a vision, you can write it down, you can make it plain. A lot of times you can have all these goals, but what's a goal without a vision? You got to have a vision, so if someone is, just say you came up with an invention for something, and you would have to draw it and get it patented, so you have to go through steps. And when you plan goals, like I'm gonna go back to what my husband was saying, don't set the bar so high till you're like, well, I thought I wanted to do this, but I changed my mind. I don't think that goal was for me. But if you know that it's something that has been burning inside of you, so maybe, when you was a child, or you became mature as you gotten older, and you say, you know what, those were dreams or things that I really, 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 really wanted to do. So, for instance, when I was a child, I knew hands down I wanted to be an actor, a singer, and a minister. You couldn't tell me nothing else, but my parents will put in my ear, you need to be a doctor, you need to be a lawyer. And that's the way of the world. That's the American dream that parents want for their children. So when my father would go around, to the table, and he would ask each of my siblings, okay, what do you want to be? And I remember when he got to me, I said, well, I want to be a singer. And he said, girl, you can't hold a tune in a brown paper bag. So I was mad. I was like, well, how do you know? You never heard me sing. You never put me into vocal classes to expand my dream or my goal that I want to do in life. So how would you know? So I was 17 years old, and a really, really good friend of mine, India Jackson, she was in the studio. She was like, Ira, you need to come to the studio with me. And I was like, okay. So I'm sitting there, and right before my eyes, I'm looking at my friend, live out her dream, and that's something that I wanted to do. So I went to the studio with her several times, and then one day I just said, I want to get in the booth. I want to go in the booth. And she said, you got a song? I was like, yeah. She said, well, what is it called? I said, well, the name of the song is called It's a Shame. And she was like, oh, okay. So the producer said, well, sing it. Let me see if I could put some music to it. And, you know, I began to sing the song, and, you know, the producer was like, wow. He was like, that's great. And he was like, okay, well, why don't you come back next week? He was like, and India was like, well, I'll pay for your first 2 sessions. And I was so excited. Mm-hmm. So when I finished it, he put it on this, you know, we were still doing the tapes, you know, that you could just pop in your little, you know, recorder or whatever. And I remember taking it, you know, home that night, and my mom was really, really mad because I had got home late. And she was like, well, where were you? I was like, well, I was at the studio. What studio? You ain't no doggone studio. But anyway, the next morning I put the tape in, and I played it, and I could hear my dad downstairs say, turn that doggone radio down. Hold on. That sounds pretty good. Who is that?
That's how he really talks, too.
He said, who is that? Oh, this you, Chubb? I was like, I said, yes, Dad. He was like, you really was in the studio? He said, okay, all right. He said, you sound pretty good, but you more of a background singer. So it was just like, you can have, you know, because your goals and your dreams start when you're a child. It don't just happen when you just, okay, when I become an adult, then that's when, you know, my dreams start. And then it was just like, you know, how could you continue to tear me down? It's like, you're not pushing me. You're not pursuing my dream. You're not, you know, I'm begging for a keyboard every Christmas. I'm begging to get guitar lessons. I'm begging to get vocal lessons. And nobody, you know, not even my parents was helping me push my dreams. So I got really, really discouraged. And I was just like, well, maybe it's not meant for me to do. Maybe it's not meant for me to do. But lo and behold, years went by, and I was able to write my first poetry book. I was able to record my first CD. Nobody know how excited I was. I was in a group. It was called Spirit and Truth. And I remember doing my first poem. It was Counterfeit Preachers. And I mean, I was just in my zone. And I remember going to this place in Texas called the Red Cat Jazz Cafe. And I know a lot of you know that place, and it was downtown and off of Commerce. And I remember they said, now coming to the stage, Ira Jacobs, aka Spirit. So I get up there, my palms are sweating, I'm sweating, and you know, so I had someone to push me. My children, you know, they were a big support. You know, then they said, Mom, you can do it. So I remember getting on stage, and this place was like an octagon shape, so it was a weird shape type of place. So I'm standing on stage, and then I'm like, and I was like, well, am I going to forget my words? What am I going to do? I don't have the book. And I knew that I had a gift and a talent that nobody could take away from me. And I began to spit those words out, and I got, you know, this huge standing ovation. People were saying, more. I have more to give them because I had just that one poem. So that really encouraged me and just pushed me, you know, to say, you know, this is, you know, part of it, because goals can be broad. You know, it's not like when you bake a cake, you just put eggs in it. No, it's more to it. You know, you gotta put the oil, you know, you gotta add, like my honey, he add extra butter, he put some vanilla flavor, you know, so he adds some more of his ingredients to make it his own. So when you have goals, it has to become your own. Right, babe?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes to everybody. But, you know, just having a little fun with it. But, I was just sitting here and I was listening to my wife, and I was just saying, imagine if she didn't follow her dream. You know, she didn't let her father or her family put her down. You know, she was still able to carry out and persevere even though somebody was giving her negative feedback. And that's one of the things about goals. You know, you have to look at the goal. Is it going to improve you? And if you feel as though it's going to improve you and improve your life, don't let nobody deter you from doing your goal. And it's funny, Babes was talking about, like, when she was growing up, it's so funny to me that when I was young, I didn't really have, like, my goal wasn't to be a lawyer or to be a doctor. I'm just being honest. I know that was what a lot of people wanted you know, people to be back in the days. Like, I used to look at the negative stuff in our society, and I was more drawn to like some of the black exploitation stuff that was going on. So, you know, that's what was being pushed back then. And I remember my mom's friend, or it was my grandmother's friend, one of the two, and she asked my little brother what he wanted to be when he grew up, and I think he said a fireman and a window washer. And my mother was like, "Oh no, not the window washer," blah blah blah. So when the lady asked me, I said I wanted to be a pimp. So I remember to this day. Now I was maybe 9 or 10 years old when this was asked, maybe younger. And then the look on the lady's face was funny. But besides that, my mother said, "Do you know what a pimp is? Do you know what they do? You know, do you know that they degrade women and all that?" But in my mind, I was watching what was being glorified at that time. You know, so I say all that to say, when you have a goal, you have to kind of put stuff in perspective. Me, I was looking at it from what was being glorified. I had no idea that pimps was beating women, having them selling whatever, and having them on the track and all that stuff. That's not what I saw. I just saw the glorification, and my mind was saying, "Oh, okay, that would be good," and I think it could have been obtainable. You know, but my heart wasn't into that. I wasn't going to be beating no women and all that kind of stuff. You know, so I changed from that. And then it was like another thing when I was growing up. I used to write poetry from time to time. But the funny thing is when I used to write poetry, I never used to let nobody read it. And then I remember this time, it was like an article in a paper or something. And it was saying that you could send in poems. They'll be in a book. And, you know, you could win a prize, blah, blah, blah. So needless to say, I wrote a poem. And I was maybe about 8 or 9. And the name of the poem was The Day I Dream Of. And I still remember the name of the poem, but I don't remember the poem, which is funny. I just remember a couple of the words. And I remember just writing it, not even thinking I was going to win anything or nothing like that. So they ended up sending me an award and all that. And then they was trying to get us to buy the book that my poem was going to be in and all that. So needless to say, you know, I don't know. For some reason, I just knocked it off. I didn't see poetry as being cool, you know, when I was a child. And, I don't know. I didn't even start getting back into poetry until like maybe the last 5 years or so. You know, so I let what I thought other people, like I was talking about Babe, she didn't let her father deter her with his negative comment. I let what I thought other people would think of me in my mind deter me from my goal or a dream or aspiration. And that was partly to write poetry and let people know what I was thinking.
Yeah, and I want to go back to, you know, when, just say you're a multi, you know, just talented. You have a lot of gifts. And I'm not popping my collar. I'm a chef. I'm a massage therapist. I am a ordained minister. I have a lot of gifts and talents. I'm a poet. I'm an author. I can sing. I can rap. I can do all those things. But my thing is, take one thing and make it your own. I wouldn't say jump around because I'm known, because I'm already like that, you know, in my head as it is. I jump around a lot. It's important to take one thing and just make that craft, make it really, really good and make it solid. Like make that blueprint, you know, to its finest, you know, to where you won't have to go back and, you know, have the demolition come in and tear it down and build it back up. You know, take your time with your craft or whatever it is, you know, that you do. And I want to ask this question. I know I'm skipping around. Like I said, I'm a person that skip around. I know some of us have done so many things, but sometimes, you know, along the way, your goals or your dreams could kind of die, you know, because you're like, okay, I'm going through this hardship. I'm in another place. You know, how do I get my zeal back, you know, to, you know, pursue my goals? And that's how it was when I moved to Philadelphia. And I was just like, nobody's going to want to hear what I have to say. No, you know, I can't even find a church home. Nobody wants to talk to me. But then as I look back, when I first, you know, got here, and then I was going to different, you know, I was working different jobs, the people that I impact, you know, I'm rapping to the kids, you know, as a substitute teacher, and, you know, getting the children to get into math and reading. And then before you know it, their SAT scores, went up, just from rapping and singing. And then, maybe it was a social worker, just fed up with the school district. I was able to say some positive words to her, and she was like, wow, Ira, you're such a positive, person. You should be a speaker, And, so I was like, whatever. But what people didn't know, this wonderful man right here, he poured so much into me. I was just like, I don't want to do that. I don't think I could write this book. I don't think I'm ever go somewhere and be on stage and doing my poetry. And he said, babe, come on now. You never know. You just got to continue to put it in the atmosphere. You can't just, have a dream. He said, but you killing your dream. And I'm like, but I don't want to kill my dream. He said, but you are. You want to, but you don't want to. You're going to have to figure out, which side of the fence you're going to be on with your goals and your dreams. You can't straddle the fence and say, okay, I want to, I don't want to. You either want to or you don't want to, so you have to figure that out. And once I got out of my own way, laid down my pride, and, stopped trying to, because when you're talking to another person about your goals and stuff, you become combative. I know I was combative towards my honey. And I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. No one's going to want to hear what I got to say. He was like, babe, you haven't even got nothing yet. So it was just this thing with me. And I was just so comfortable where I was. But God will take you out of your comfort zone just to test you. I hadn't stood in front of a crowd of people since 2006. And I'm like, babe, I was asked to come and do some poetry on stage, and it's going to be a pretty nice crowd there. And he was like, well, I suggest you get to writing and get this thing going, because it's not going to write for you. You need to, start doing what you need to do. And it's so important to have that person, to push you into what they know you can do. My husband's not going to push me into something he know that I can't do. Like I said, I want to fly a plane. Now, I may get on one and let someone fly me somewhere. But to say, oh, I want to be a pilot, it's a little late in the game. And what experience have you had? You just can't just say something just to be saying something and you have no experience. But he knew that I wrote poetry since I was 9 years old, and I was doing things, with the craft that I had. But just with that love and that support and him pushing me into what he know I could do well, it gave me that hope again. My zeal came back. I got excited. I was able to go to, I was able to go to the rehearsal and stand on stage. And I was nervous with just 6 people there. And I was like, am I going to be able to do this? And so when I began to start, spitting my spoken word, people was clapping. They was like, wow, they was excited. And I was thinking to myself, I said, okay, now I got 6 people excited. How many people going to be excited, when I really get on stage and do my thing? So the next day came around. And it was 3 people. It was 3 people before me, and the crowd was just like blah.
Yes, they were.
I was like, oh no! And I leaned over and I said, babe, they kind of dry. He looked at me. He said, Ira, if you reach one person clap, it could just be me clapping. He said, baby, I got you. Get up there and do your thing. Do your thing. And I had to, again, get out of my own way of what people may have thought. How come the crowd wasn't, pumped enough? I don't know. I was just afraid. Fear just set in. Fear just set in. But when I got up there, whose voice I could hear the loudest? Mine. I could hear my voice say, Ira, you can do this. And then the next voice I heard, and I knew it was the guy within me, loud. It was him really just pushing me to say, okay, Ira, you could do all things. Get up there and do your thing. And then the second voice I heard was just really, it's like a cherry covered with chocolate. It was my husband. Go, babe. I was excited. He was like, go, babe, you could do it. And I wanted to cry because it's like I blocked everybody else out of my mind. And I got up there and I was like, this is a privilege and an honor. And it was. When I said that, I meant that it was a privilege and an honor to be given the opportunity to do it. And when I did, and it was in the crowd, it was like, because of my positive energy that I brought when I got on stage, it shifted the whole crowd. Everybody was like, woo! They was doing the snaps and they was clapping, and I was just like, woo, okay, got through the first one. And then after that, the second one and the third one, it just flowed, so easily. So I said all of that to say, you want somebody to invest in your dream. And, my husband is I didn't ask God, to give me this man. And y'all, please, if I get emotional, because I am. I didn't ask for a specific mate or, nothing like that. I just wrote in my book one day, God, let your will be done. And his will was done, whether I liked it or not. Even though I was trying to push away from something that was going to take me to the next level. And you have to understand, it's like this. It's like a hand grabbing another hand, grabbing another hand, grabbing another hand. And my husband would always tell me, Ira, it's going to be somebody somewhere. You just got to be prepared. If you're not prepared, then you're not going to go, you're not going to go anywhere. You just got to be ready. And it's true, you have to be ready at all times. And I know I'd probably talked up all this whole 30 minutes, but I just needed to get that out. I needed to say that.
Look, it's a unit. Sometimes I might talk more, sometimes you might talk more. But it's funny that she said that because I saw that her dream was attainable. I saw in her that she had the ability to do what was being called for her to do. She's a spoken word artist. She also writes poetry. I'm here with her. I'm around her when she writes poetry. I write poetry as well. Sometimes we bounce off each other. Sometimes she spits to me like, the spoken word that she's going to say. We talk about different ideas, writing books, all kinds of stuff. So when it was asked whether she can do this or not, it was no doubt in my mind that I knew she could do that. That's the direction that it was meant for her to go because she has the ability to grab people's attention when she talks. Conversation is part of her like a teaching tool. Even when she talks to the kids that she works with, it's like she's able to grab their attention when some of the other people may not be able to do it as well as she can. She has this certain something, and I didn't want to diminish her dream. Part of being in a marriage is both of us coming together as a unit so that we can help each other persevere and go in the direction that we want to go. And just to tie into that, we have a lot of goals that we want to do together. But one of the things, when you're making a goal, you have to make sure it's realistic. As I said earlier, if you have a bigger goal and it's a big goal, maybe break it down into little parts so you can do a part at a time so that you don't become overwhelmed. A lot of people start doing things that they've written down. Another thing, write down your goal.
Yes, write it down.
A lot of people start going in the direction of the goals that they wanted to, accomplish. And if they make it too broad, it's like they can't see a finish line. They can't see a date. They can't see them acquiring that. And some people, they'll just get overwhelmed and shut down. But if you break it down into parts and then you set a date, well, I'm going to do this by a particular date and time. I'm going to do this by a particular date and time and do this. It starts to become more attainable because it's like when you're climbing up a mountain, you don't just jump and climb the whole mountain. You take your time, step per step, step per
just
step.
Just like a baby. A baby don't come out of the womb and just start walking.
Exactly.
You got, like this with the old saying, you got to crawl before you can walk.
And preparation.
And this is so good. It's like we get better as we do these topics. Another thing is you want to continue to improve your, as you go along. Like my husband was saying, once you write it down, you say, and it's true because he'll tell me, babe, you look, Rome wasn't built in a day. So take your time and write it down, and that's what I've learned to do. Just taking that, that wisdom and applying that to my life, and it has really, 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 really helped me. For instance, my goal is to lose 40 pounds. And I've lost a little bit. You know, my body, for some weird reason, has changed since I moved to the East Coast. I'm going this way and not this way. But
It's all right.
he went and bought a like a bullet, you know, so that, you know, we can make shakes and stuff like that.
Juicing.
And it has really helped him more than me, because I mean, he
lost
had put
about 20
on
pounds.
he's lost about 20 pounds. And like I said, you know, women, we lose weight differently. Like me, I'm more of an inches. I'll lose inches before you could actually see, you know, weight. But I'm proud to be a curvy woman. I'm not fat. I'm just curvy and thick. I'll just put that out there. But I do desire to lose, you know, some weight. And he said, okay, babe, you know, you got to take your time. He's willing to go to the gym with me. They have like a little section where he could just sit and read, and I could just give him a 30 minutes in and say, okay, baby, I'm ready to go. But also, you know, he'll say, babe, you know, stop eating so much peppermint. You shouldn't eat that much. That's probably my only bad habit that I have, because I just don't gorge on a bunch of stuff. I don't eat a bunch of food. It's just something about that peppermint. It just soothes me. But it's a lot of sugar. You know, so that's another goal that I have. And it's goals that he wants to do. He wants to finish, you know, his book. But with all that being said, once you put that main thing, we was talking about this on the way home. He said, babe, ever since you done the poetry thing, he said, look at all the stuff that has come your way. I'm not going to disclose it right now, but I'm telling you, it has been a plethora of stuff that have come both of our way, because it's not just mine, it's both of our dream. Because when I'm doing something, he's supporting me, and when he's doing something, I'm supporting him. So I'm just over. Y'all don't even know. This is like an emotional
roller coaster.
It's an emotional roller coaster, but it's emotional in a good way for me, because I've cried many tears where it wasn't a good emotional cry. It was like a cry of being scared and doubt and not believing and not having hope and stuff like that. But I'm just grateful to God, you know, for putting all of these opportunities in play for me. So what's for me is for him as well, because that's why we say we're as one. You know, because, you know, just to see, I got a email, like I said, I can't disclose anything right now. And I said, babe, blah, 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 blah. Nothing gave me more joy to look in my husband's face. He's a very affectionate person. To see, I mean, his face turns like cherry red when something happens good in my life. He gets excited. He said, you know, that's good, babe. Like the day we got married, it's just, you know, everything is like a marriage, you know. He gets real. I love it. You know, I just looked at and said, babe, guess what? And he said, what today? And I said, blah, blah, blah. He said, that's good, babe. See. So, you know, it's not like he said, I told you so, but he was like, see, when you put it out there, you write it down and you say what it is that you want to, you know, to do. Don't procrastinate.
Believe in
Do
yourself.
y'all hear me? Procrastination will steal your dreams and your goals.
And your
if
joy.
you procrastinate and you be like, okay, I'm gonna do it tomorrow. And my opportunity, I could have messed it up. And my husband's like, why you gonna put it off tomorrow when you could do it today? And I said, you know what, he right. And I jumped straight up out of my sleep and I got this thing done. And just within a matter of hours, something that I dreamed about, it came back to me the next day.
Gotta visualize it. You gotta believe that you can achieve it.
Yeah.
You know, that's part of visualizing.
Yes.
Part of having a goal is visualizing it. You know, believing you can achieve it. Believing that if you take steps in that direction, that you'll be able to get it. You know, we're probably gonna have to do a part 2 to this too, because there's a lot that we wanted to say. But I'm gonna say a couple of things real quick. You know, goals that we have to get better mentally. She spoke about physically, financially, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually. We're going to continue to invest in our marriage, you know, the intimacy, the growing together, you know, the doing for one another, alleviating the selfishness, you know, becoming more flexible, because when you come together as one, it's not just you anymore, it's we, it's us. So, and becoming flexible, meaning that everything doesn't have to always be done on your terms. It's
Right.
done on our terms.
Right.
You know, we want to take trips, go different places, even speaking engagements.
Right.
This is a dream in a sense, you know, that we came together and we were talking about it. People was telling me to do it. You know, she
And
wanted
people
to
was
do it,
telling me to
and
do it
people was
too.
telling her. And then we came together and started doing this. And then we visualized it. This may be little to something, but this could be something that could catapult us to a different area, a different arena, talking to different people. You know, and you just continue to tweak as you go.
Right.
Everything's not going to go exactly the way you thought it was going to go, so then you just tweak it here and there as you go. We come together and we brainstorm about, that's another thing, brainstorming. We come together, throw ideas, I throw ideas. We have some ideas that's coming up, writing books together, you know. I write poetry, she writes poetry, we write poetry together as well.
He's a producer.
Yeah.
I sing, I rap.
You know, so
He probably
it's
won't
all-
sing now.
Yeah, no, hell no. I ain't singing. Y'all hear me singing, y'all gonna run. But you know, like I said, you know, just try to keep your focus on the things you want to do. Don't let anybody deter you. If what is irrelevant, leave it out. You know, continue to go in the direction you want to go, and stay on course.
Yes, stay on course.
Stay focused. Stay determined.
Yes.
You know, and one other thing, it's a marriage.
It's a
So
marriage.
continue to improve your communication with each other.
Yeah, a marriage. And when you think of marriage, and yes, you think of relationship, but it's a partnership. It's a partnership too. So all of that, those things, when you're doing something together, it goes hand in hand. And then, you know, and when you do your goals, you will reap a harvest. But be a good steward. Don't be a good steward whether you have the money or you don't have the money. Be a good steward over your craft and whatever, you know, dreams and aspirations you and your mate have together.
Okay, so we're going to end it there. And hopefully everybody having a good day. You know,
Yes.
it's a good day to be alive regardless.
Yes.
And again, we're as one. I'm Divine Warren.
And I'm Ira Warren.
And as we always close it out,
Peace.